Good morning. Fortunately, I don't have a presentation, so I'll try and keep it short and I won't kill you with boredom on slides. But yesterday we agreed, we had Coal India as one of the panellists, and we agreed that India is going to rely on coal for potentially another 2 decades. Now, put that another way, what we're agreeing was that within 20 years, coal use in India could potentially cease. So the topic I would like to address is the need for reskilling and redeployment to recognise that India is going to use dramatically more energy, but the form of that energy is going to be very, very different. So we need to reskill the workforce of tomorrow. We need to build capacity for the workforce of tomorrow rather than necessarily just maximising the skill set for the existing industry that's already there. Absolutely, and I think we've addressed that in huge detail. But my area of focus is very much about the energy transition and the rate of technology change, and I think every speaker has addressed there's dramatic technology change going on, and the rate of change is far faster than people are expecting. So I would like to talk about reskilling and building capacity for the industry of the future, and I'll do it relatively quickly. So one area that India absolutely needs to build capacity in the energy sector is in fact finance and IT. As opposed to the engineering skills and the mining skills, you need those, but you actually need a lot more skills, as you mentioned. The upskill equipment development and installation and maintenance in the energy system of the future is actually relatively labour brief. There isn't a lot of labour. If you think about a wind farm, you'll have a maintenance worker go and check the wind turbine once a year. A solar project, you'll have someone wash the panel, hopefully without water. But you have a $1 billion investment, you might have 3 staff. So I'm not saying that there aren't going to be jobs. There'll be an enormous number of jobs, but the jobs aren't going to be in the upstream equipment maintenance. You build a solar project, it's virtually labour-free for 25 years, but what you do have is a very significant amount of labour in the technology side, in the downstream consumer-facing side, in the financing side. And so I would say you actually need to rebuild capacity, redeploy and reskill for the industry of the future. And I'm not trying to be negative here, I'm actually looking at an enormous opportunity for India. IEFA's work, so my company's work, we estimate that India will probably invest, or could well invest, $400 billion this decade alone to deliver on Prime Minister Modi's 450 gigawatts of renewables target by 2030. $400 billion of investment in renewables in 1 decade, that's a huge amount of capacity, that's a huge amount of employment. But then you also need $100 billion of investment in storage to actually balance the intermittency of renewables. So you're going to need a huge skill set in pumped hydro storage, in batteries, in lithium-ion battery manufacturing capacity. Then you actually need to spend $200 billion on developing the grid to actually make sure that you have a smart grid. Capacity needs to double. So all up, we're actually looking at potential investment of $700 billion in India in just 1 decade to double or treble the amount of energy going through the system. The skill set for that is all about new jobs and new industries. Now, one of the things that I find extremely impressive about India is that when I look at, and when I talk to NTPC, when I talk to Coal India, when I talk to NLC, you see those companies, traditional fossil fuel-based companies, actually embracing the future. So who's the biggest enabler of solar in India? It's NTPC, the biggest coal-fired power company in India. So that, to me, gives me a lot of optimism that that company, which has $50 billion of assets, will actually progressively, or sorry, won't, it is progressively transforming and it has a vision to grow and in fact double its capacity over the next decade and a half, but through reskilling. So saying, look, we're technology agnostic, we want to deliver the energy needs of the system rather than the coal needs of India. And that comes straight from my discussions with the chairman of NTPC. I met with him 4 years ago, and his first sentence was, I am technology agnostic. I am embracing all the technologies, and that is key. So if you think about it, you need skill development in the EPC side, in the finance side, in the IT side. We need to build in place the financial system to actually successfully deploy $700 billion, because that capital will only come if it is in viable projects. It's not going to just come from domestic markets, it's going to come from international markets. So again, I go back to Prime Minister Modi's vision, and you have to start with a vision, you have to start with a strategy. And Prime Minister Modi has put India on the global roadmap with a 450 gigawatt target for India by 2030, and the government and the industry is now building the capacity to actually deliver on that. Now, obviously, when you're talking about a massive disruption and transformation, that's not easy, so it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but at least we know very, very clearly, we in India and the world knows the vision. So it's about maintaining the existing fossil fuel base and building a whole next level of technology for India to move India to be a world leader in energy systems of the future, but relying on domestic energy resources. Domestic energy resources are coal, but they're also wind, solar and hydro, and that makes it more sustainable, more environmental. Another area to touch on, the last speaker mentioned the importance of recycling. And yesterday we had a key speaker talking about whole of supply chain management. To me, again, that is absolutely critical. I mean, the pushback about renewables being a clean industry will be totally flawed if it is totally reliant on batteries and we don't have a recycling process for those batteries. It'll actually be entirely unsustainable because India has no lithium-ion industry. So you'll be reliant on imports of lithium, but you could actually be reliant only on lithium imports for the first round, and then you do recycling. Likewise, solar modules. We will have a massive new industry in recycling of solar modules, or we'll have a massive environmental disaster when 20 years down the track all of those modules are broken. So to me, we need to think, and I really enjoy studying the Indian energy market because the government and the industry is embracing the opportunity. I mean, 2 days ago I went to see Renew Power. I went to them 5 years ago and they were literally one small office. Now they've got an entire building in Gurgaon. They're one of the 2 biggest renewable energy companies in India. They didn't exist 5 years ago. Thousands of employees investing billions of dollars in India, in industries of the future. If I step back, and again, if you look at how is India going to enable $700 billion of investment in this one area, it's through the sustainability lens. It's got to actually look and say, well, okay, in climate change, probably the biggest pressing global issue. India did not cause the problem, but India is going to be a key part of the solution. But you therefore need to embrace and actually recognise the capital requirements. So last month we saw BlackRock, the biggest investor in the world, totally reframe their investment strategy to talk about needing to embrace risk analysis about climate change and incorporate that throughout their investment supply chain. State Street, the 3rd biggest investor in the world, 2 weeks ago announced that they are going to evaluate and vote against boards that don't embrace environmental, social and governance criteria. So to me, I'm looking at it from a global finance perspective and saying with the changes that are happening globally, as India transforms, the capital will be made available, but maybe we need to step back a little bit from just the simple profit motive and say we need to look at all stakeholders and do it on a sustainable basis. That involves gender, which is, I've been delighted to hear that has been a key topic this morning, but we need sustainability and we need reskilling and embrace the opportunities that India is looking forward to. So I might stop there, and we're well over time, but thank you very much for your attention.